Biztech's C-Suite Conversation Show. Now, our guest today is no stranger to Biztech Asia. He's Simon Dale, Vice President for Asia at Adobe. Now, Adobe is the global leader in digital media and digital marketing solutions, known for their Creative Cloud and Document Cloud suites of products made for a gamut of digital marketing needs. Now, to tell us more, welcome back to the show, Simon.
Thank you, Brian. It's good to be back.
Now, Simon, you were last on 18 months ago. The business was very different then. How does the business look like today, post-pandemic? Walk us through the evolution and what it looks like.
Yeah, well, look, I think the pandemic really, as we knew, was a bit of a cliche in terms of accelerating digital transformation, and everybody was rushing to work at what that meant. I think we now have the overhang of that, where people have kind of worked out what worked and what maybe didn't work. And anything new that they're looking at, they're taking more of a really serious look at, like, is this going to give me a proper return on investment? So people are being a little bit more careful and considered in their decisions process and really saying, is it worth the money?
Now, what have been the key areas of growth for Adobe? Because globally, obviously, the creator economy is one of those areas that's just completely exploded. And you're right in the heart of that.
Yeah, look, you mentioned our creative and document clouds. We also have our experience cloud, which is where we help companies to do that digital transformation for their digital customer experience. And all three are connected. I'd say that the various trends that have continued since COVID, and some were emerging beforehand, are still there. As you said, the creator economy, where people are getting on these social channels, people are doing more digital omni-channel kind of work where they need more content across, whether it is marketplaces or their own mobile apps or websites or even on influencer channels. There's also the sustainability angle around the document cloud for us, which is saving an awful lot of paper and trees, and also helping governance as well to track documents digitally and so on. And then there's this whole experience place, which is really about helping people to build their own e-commerce channels, to attract more customers to their brand. And what I've seen in the last 18 months in particular in this digital experience space is it's a real focus now on how do I make money from this? Not just, have a digital presence, but how is it going to hit my revenue as well as my, customer satisfaction and measures like that?
So Simon, then, with that in mind, give us an example or several examples, if you could, in the Asia Pacific region around how Adobe has helped customers do just that, do digital transformation, and then add value to the bottom line.
Yeah, well, I'd say one of our flagship examples in this part of the world is the Singapore Central Provident Fund, CPF. I mean, I'm a member of that. My pension fund is building in there quite nicely. And that is something that over the past 2 or 3 years, we've helped them with in terms of really upgrading their digital experience for all of us Singapore locals and PRs and so on who put our funds in there and need to know what to do with them at various stages of our lives. So the angle there has not just been about modernizing their website, but really thinking about that personalized experience of how old is somebody, what life stage are they at, are they buying a home in their early years, or have they paid off their mortgage and then they need to save for retirement effectively and safely. And so connecting that digital channel story with the content story around personalizing the right kind of content to individuals so they can take care of their own financial well-being and be better informed about that is how we, for an example there, of how we help CPF do that.
And Simon, just as you were explaining that, I was just thinking and relating back to what you said about saving trees, how much of paperwork that's actually saving, because basically as you personalize the experience, the self-help, it negates a lot of printed forms and printed brochures and printed materials.
Well, we actually help at both ends. There's a capability we have because of our experience in this world of PDFs, right? We have this capability for forms, digital forms. So instead of having to download a form, fill it in and sign it, you can now do this form electronically and electronically sign it. So in the input process, there's less paper involved. And then also in the output process, when somebody is having to have a contract to be reviewed or a policy agreement to be signed, similar kind of thing. There's a couple of things happen there. One is around our ability to do that all electronically as a workflow and have a digital signature, not just the signature in, say, Adobe Acrobat PDF on somebody's PC, but we even partnered with Microsoft to be able to do that in a live Teams call that would be verified properly by the regulators to say this was a legally approved transaction in some jurisdictions. So that also started to streamline that. And the other thing that we've started to do now is we've started to add generative AI to our Adobe Acrobat Reader and PDF editor, so that if you get, say, a 60-page document, we'll automatically summarize that document and allow you to ask questions of the content inside that document to really make it easier for you to understand either a contract or some kind of policy wording, for example.
Okay, and that's interesting. And I want to dive a little bit deeper into Adobe's AI strategy, because everyone, I mean, that's the buzzword that's on top of everyone's mind.
Yeah.
What's the strategy with regards to AI at Adobe? How is that going to make the lives of your customers better?
Yeah, so I'd like to kind of give you a perspective from where we're coming from in our industry, and then as it compares to the rest of the industry to start with. There's been a lot of noise around generative AI in large language models, which are all oriented around text. So their input, their training input is text, and their output is text. But there's many more different formats in the world. We deal a lot with images, videos, graphics, 3D objects, right? We're actually building what we call our foundational models for each of those different categories from our 40 plus years of experience of helping people to build these kinds of content, so that our generative AI can generate a realistic image or a realistic video or a realistic graphic for a logo from all of the history that we have. So we have all these different little categories, which is more on this creative side. And for the text stuff, we're starting to integrate some of those other models into our world, so we can bring it all together and help people to create a combination of digital content in a far more organized way.
That sounds really, is your product name, and I did the research on that, called Firefly? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. So our generative AI banner brand is Adobe Firefly, and Firefly started last year generating images. We launched a second version at the end of the year, and I believe we had well over 1 billion images generated, and we're commercializing that already, so people can buy that. And the difference that we have with that model we started with was we say, and we claim and make sure that when we deliver this, that it's safe for commercial use. And what we mean by that is that, first of all, our foundational model has only been trained on material that we know is copyright free, or our own material that's safe, that if you produce an image and then use it in your business for, say, a brand campaign, you're less likely to get a liable claim. And if you do get a liable claim, we'll give you the insurance policy. We'll give you an indemnification against the claim if it's coming from our foundational model. So that's why we really think about that. And we also think about our community of creators protecting their world so that their material doesn't get misused in that whole approach as well.
And that's fascinating, because that's something that is now starting to come up, the infringement of copyright, obviously, because your core business is looking after copyright. Yeah. And you've been doing this for decades. That's top of mind, and it's good to hear that basically that's really already taken care of. And of course, the insurance policy around that is also a very reassuring thing if you are a large commercial user. Could you tell us, you recently had your summit, your Adobe Summit in 2024. I'm sure AI was very much part of the conversation with your partners and collaborators and so forth and customers. Walk us through some of the key highlights of that as well.
Yeah, so as I said, right, it's more than just generating content or generating an image. It's like, say, for example, you want to use that in your digital customer experience. So there's an entire industry doing this. There's an entire agency industry as well as in-house creatives, and all of them need to work together. And it's a business process, like any other business process. It's what we call the content supply chain. From creation to engagement with the customer and the measurement of that engagement, it's a supply chain like any other. And so what we were announcing at the summit was, how are we taking our existing solutions, which manage all this digital content and the engagement through channels, and adding generative AI to that. So, for example, we launched our product called Gen Studio, which joins up all of these capabilities, such as Firefly and some of our existing content management solutions, so that you can say to its AI assistant, which we talked about in our launch, hey, I would like to build a website that will allow me to market to consumers in a friendly way, and you can actually ask it what sentiment you want to produce, and about my product that I manufacture. And it will go away and generate that template with images, with text, and that text will follow the sentiment that you asked for. And you'll be able to do this with a natural language prompt. Now, that is more than just generating one thing. It's actually generating an entire set of capabilities which allow you to engage with your consumers. And it's a good starting point then for people to go and say, I'll fine tune this. But it's a super accelerator for people to drive this digital engagement.
Now, Simon, obviously, and there have been lots of conversations about it in different industries on the impact of that AI is going to have on really employment, and also on how we use our people. What are you seeing in the APAC region at this point of time? Which markets are more receptive to adopting the technology? Which markets do you think are perhaps laggards in this respect?
Oh, I think the interesting thing about Southeast Asia in particular is obviously it's a very localized environment, different languages, different cultures, and a lot of the global AI models don't necessarily fit into that local context. And the great thing about the ASEAN government organization is that they are trying to address that by building some models which close that last mile gap with the local economies. We also have, in terms of our training models, looked at how we bring localized content in so that we can generate content which is more suitable for different cultures around the world, including Southeast Asia. And then you really got to get onto the ground as to go, well, what business problems are people trying to solve with generative AI? And is it going to disrupt different industries in different ways? I mean, one of the examples that I talked about, just mentioned earlier, right, is that we've been generating images, and those images may used to have been taken by a photographer. But the photographer wouldn't just take the image. They would actually work probably for many hours on that image, turning it into an asset which can be used and is good enough for them to publish. And that job of getting the image ready for publication is still there. It's just that the spending a few hours going to the forest and taking the picture might not be necessary anymore, for example. So there's an element of this where it's increasing the productivity of a lot of roles. Maybe it's eliminating some, but we see it as being a great assistant across many of the different roles in this particular content supply chain, as I mentioned.
And also what it is, and this is a personal opinion, of course, actually it empowers the small guy and also the people who are in large organizations who often have to outsource work.
Exactly.
It empowers them to do a lot of stuff in-house.
Yes.
And the small guy, basically, because they don't have the resources, they can use these tools to do things that they probably couldn't do previously.
Yeah, in fact, it makes it far more accessible to everybody to be able to get onto this journey of digital transformation. You rightly say, right? If somebody wanted to learn the technical skills to do something with this, it's a very long journey. But if they can just log on to Adobe Firefly and in English or in Thai or in Bahasa, say, hey, give me this particular image and it's 80% of the way there, they've saved a significant amount of time and money, and then they can just fine tune it for whatever use they have.
Absolutely. Simon, you're preaching the converted there, and I as a user as well of different tools, I've just seen how this AI explosion, and you and I are old enough, Simon. This basically feels like Internet 1.0 right now. Literally, and that's the feeling that I get. I think we're the cusp of a lot of growth, and we're just at the early stage of that. Is that a feeling that you're getting, or do you think that we've already passed that stage?
Oh no, I think it is. We're getting towards the end of that first sort of explosion stage, just like we were when everybody put up a website, but nobody knew why they were doing it. Now I think we're getting into that stage, as I said, with everyone's thrown money at it, and now they're seeing what works, and you're starting to see those patterns emerging of where you can get a return on spending time and money on this particular subject. And I certainly see across Southeast Asia a very high willingness to step into that early, to do that learning, and as we just discussed, right, the barrier to entry has dropped significantly from what it may have been before, because anyone who was trying to do AI before would have had to probably build a lot of infrastructure. And now you just log in through a browser and all that's available to you for free in some cases.
So Simon, then I've got to then ask you, how does your business look like in the APAC region for 2024? What are your goals? What are the key challenges that you see in 2024?
Well, certainly with all this innovation coming on both our creative and document and experience clouds, we see great opportunity to take our customers forward by bringing this capability to them, right? We as I said, the distribution that we have with our existing products, such as Acrobat, our creative cloud solutions like Photoshop and Illustrator, where we're embedding all of this generative AI, gives us a great opportunity to both educate our customers and show them the value of adopting this. And then when you connect that to the ever increasing trend of people going digital with their business and wanting to make money from those channels, then those worlds coming together are a very optimum time for us.
Simon, it's been a fascinating conversation. Great update on what's happening with Adobe. But before we leave, any final thoughts you'd like to leave the audience with?
Oh, well, I'd love people to just go and give it a try. If you go to adobefirefly.com, then you'll get access for free. You can play around with it. If you look at Adobe Express, where we've sort of embedded some of our lighter weight creative capabilities to edit the photos and create like flyers. For example, I'm in a band and I just generated a flyer for one of the concerts we were having using Express with a generated image and text, and then just 5 minutes later I could send it out to all my friends. So would really encourage people to go and experiment and experience it and see where you could take it.
And Simon, that's exactly what I'm going to do after this, after we finish our conversation. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks for the time again.
I'm Brian Fernandez, and this has been Biztech's C-Suite Conversation Show. We've been speaking to Simon Dale, Vice President for Asia at Adobe. This interview will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.